Have you ever had a big performance moment coming up? A presentation, a conversation, an exam, a race, a really big decision. And the weight of it starts to grow in your head. The stakes feel huge, the pressure tightens. And suddenly it's not just about doing the task, it's about not messing it up. If that's you, I want you to know you're not behind. You're not doing it wrong. You're standing at the edge of something that matters. Dr. Lisa Martin has spent the past decade working with people right at that edge. Elite athletes on race day, doctors preparing for examinations where one result can shape the next decade of their careers. People whose ability to stay grounded, to stay focused, and to be clear directly affects outcomes. Lisa is a sport and performance psychologist, and her name might already be familiar with our PQ audience. Lisa has worked closely with 11-time Coolangatta Gold winner and Ironman legend, Ali Day, not on his physical training, but on how Ali shows up mentally when pressure is at its peak. What Lisa knows and what she teaches cuts through a lot of the noise. She doesn't teach people to eliminate pressure. She teaches them how to carry it well without losing perspective, without losing identity, and without losing control. So if you're carrying something important right now, a big decision, a performance moment, or a massive responsibility, stay with me because you might be much closer than you actually think. On a recent podcast, we had the legend, the greatest of all time, Ali Day, and we recorded that podcast leading into the Coolangatta Gold. He won his 11th Coolangatta Gold, one of the most grueling endurance races in the world. Ali didn't just talk about his training or physical prep or transition from the board to the paddle to the swim or the run. He credited you, Lisa Martin, for a huge part of his mental game and the way he stays focused and how he stays steady under extreme pressure. Let's have a listen to an excerpt from that interview.
Yeah, Lisa's been, a huge pillar in my career and my success. And just, as I said, this is going to be my last season this year. And we're quite obviously like really good friends now. It's more than just like a working sort of relationship. It's, it's awesome to be able to sit there, and we've definitely ridden the highs and lows together, that's for sure. There was one probably 3 or 4 years ago, I remember, where I was racing down at Maroubra, and no joke, word for word, and visualization and the hypnotise we did on my balcony, and she just did it via Zoom. And the next day I woke up and the race played out like just exactly the same.
As I played that, I watched you go on a bit of a roller coaster, smiling, reflecting, looking up, looking down, looking sideways. What a beautiful testament to the body of work you've done and the impact you've had on Ali Day. That must make you feel very, very proud.
Yeah, Ali is an amazing athlete. I'm really lucky to be a part of his journey and to have a small role to play. And I know he has really appreciated the work we've done together, but gosh, like how much of a better client can you have? You sort of talk about things to do and he goes out and does it to a T. And the visualization on the hypnosis aspect of it, I did that with Ali, and I don't do it with all of my athletes because I think what he said there, he was very open to it. So the athletes that are open to change and you feel are kind of in a regulated state, and I think you got to regulate before you rewire. And I hear that from a range of different sources when I'm investigating more about neuroscience and emotional regulation and nervous system regulation. But he was definitely ready for the hypnosis and a very good subject, so to speak. So I'm so glad it worked for him.
I see what you're doing. You're making this about somebody else, so I'm going to make you really uncomfortable. We're going to come back. Two threads I want to go down to. Hypnosis, we'll do that second. But when Ali talks about that race at Maroubra and you'd done the imagery with him, you'd gone through the race, you'd gone through the preparedness. Can you just talk to me as a practitioner what you're actually doing with someone? Because that's readiness. Like when you get someone to go, and when you're in surf, it is chaos. You have a whole bunch of people, so you don't know what other athletes are going to do. You don't know how you're going to sometimes turn up. But you don't know what's going to happen with the weather and the elements. So you've got multiple competing, distracting demands. So just talk to me a little bit about the methodology behind what you did with Ali.
Oh, look, I think it's finding out his race plan and how he wants to race, what's important to him, what we want to do is we want to bring all of his energy to himself. And yes, there's everything else that he will react to intuitively. He'll make decisions intuitively because that's part of his automatic system. That's what he does because of his experience and who he is as an athlete. But what we want to do is we want to really find out the way that he wants to race, get his words. So I got him to write the visualization. I prompted him and we went through a whole race from start to finish. We want to make it as much in real time as possible. So that's really important to get from the starter's gun all the way through to winning. We want the ideal race. We want everything going the way he wants it to. So we want it all right. And what everybody else is doing around him is not important, really. That doesn't mean that you can't focus on it during the race. Of course, you're going to focus on people around you. You're going to be aware of different aspects of the external environment. But that's what I mean at the start by coming with the flexibility. But we're going to come back and we're going to come back to the things that he knows works and helps him to go faster, so to speak. I guess that's what we want to do, isn't it? We want to go faster. And so we get the script all worked out and then we can do either a visualization or a hypnosis. And the hypnosis is just, a different level of relaxation and taking kind of down into that kind of focused state of attention and where the subconscious is suggestible. And so then we're kind of going down into this super relaxed state and then going through the script with him. And yeah, we might have done that, I think, 8 or 9 times at some point over that period of time. Usually it's like 6. And what we're trying to do is
6 repetitions.
Yeah, maybe. It just depends. Like
how long each?
Oh, it depends. Like the first induction maybe is between 15 and 20 minutes. Oh no, the first induction is probably a bit shorter. Depends how I do it different each time. So probably around 15 minutes where you sort of you're down into the relaxed state and then you come back out again.
And you're not replicating the race in real time. You're shifting state, getting into the deeper brainwaves. So you're getting out of alpha where we are going down into the deeper, so theta, delta brainwaves.
I think we're more just reducing the default mode network. So we're kind of getting rid of that controlling critical part of the brain. We're increasing the alpha and the theta brainwaves actually in that respect. But we're sort of staying in the moment of the work. So if you do this sometimes with athletes, you might find that they, start to get increased heart rate. You might find that they start to sweat. In this particular occasion, that's not what happened. It's a relaxed state, but an alert state to what you're going through in terms of the race. And it is in real time. I don't want to do it slow motion. I don't want to stretch it out too long. His race is about, 12 minutes maybe. We don't want to do it much longer than that.
Yeah, so you really are replicating. It's specific. Yeah, I like that. You mentioned language, and just remembering Ali in the interview said one of his transitions was the word piss bolt. Which, for anyone growing up, Ali's a bit younger than us, but in that era, I'm going to get on my bike and piss bolt up to the shop. So I loved that it was real language. And when he told me, he had this little giggle and cheeky look on his face. But that makes sense. You've dropped the board and you've got a piss bolt on the Sandow and you're going. So that language really kicked in for him.
Yeah, that just resonated with him actually. And I just said it as an example. I said, look, we want to come up with a word or something that's in your mind that resonates with you. I said, for example, when you used to knock and run when you were a kid, not that you should do that, kids, but, you go to someone's house, you'd knock around and they'd say piss bolt and you'd hightail it, so to speak, out of there. And I just mentioned the word that we used to say, like piss bolt. And he's like, we used to say that.
Oh, yeah, piss bolt.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yes, let's do that. And so, we did the more professional approach to like explode, get your feet in the sand and explode. But, he just opted for piss bolt.
I found it interesting when you spoke about hypnosis. You didn't do this. So for anyone watching on YouTube, because every hypnotist, Martin St. James, they always have photos with the hands sort of in this mystical pose and the head to the side. Now on hypnosis, I think I got off to a bad start. I'll paint the picture. I'm 18. same height, about 25 kilos lighter. I had long hair, mullet out the back. I sat on the stage. I went to RSL Dubbo and with a couple of mates, had a few beers, and I was a middle distance athlete, never been a big drinker. And back then, 2 beers was a very big night out, Lisa. And I had my hand put up. I voluntold to go up on stage with Martin St. James, and I became one of the stars of the show, dancing to Mick Jagger. I need to try and find the footage, and if I can, before we play this, we'll put it on YouTube and it'll just shock our audience.
Yep, I would like to see that one.
I don't know what happened to me that night, whether it just got me in a relaxed state, and I've thought about this a lot, so this is more for me, not for our audience. Was that tapping into me wanting to be someone I wasn't? It just gave me an excuse because it was at Martin St. James, or was he really skilled and did something I don't know? Because there sounds like there's a lot more science to what you do than me having 2 beers getting up on stage with some travelling hypnotist.
Look, the traveling hypnotist, I can declare I have no idea how they do it. I have no idea. The way that I
think they tap into people's inner extrovert or inner show person, and that comes out.
I still find it fascinating every time I watch things like that, though. I do. I'm like, how does that happen? Is that real? And,
I'll tell you what I said. So they're sitting down. I can remember this, and a couple of my mates were there, still laugh about it. This is like 30 plus years ago. He said, when I say love, you say, and it got to one guy, it said, my wife, Gloria. When I say love, you think of, and one guy went, sex, and everyone laughed. And then he came to me, when I say love, you say, and I said, sheep.
Sorry. I didn't expect that one.
No, either did the audience. This wasn't on our running script, was it?
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Hey, Wiz, I'm gonna piss bolt out of here, mate. Take over this interview. We've lost it.
Oh, look, I don't know how they do that stuff. I really don't. I mean, when I learnt to do hypnosis, and I don't do it clinically, so I don't go back into, I don't help people quit smoking. I don't do anything with their past repressed memories or anything. I don't do anything like that. But the psychologist who taught me was a clinical and sports psychologist, and we learnt over a number of months. And I remember going in there, and I had a lower back problem, and I had a lot of pain. And this is the bit that kind of did it for me. And I was in so much pain, and he said to me, how much pain are you in? And I'm like, oh, like 11 out of 10. Like I couldn't hardly sit down. I was in, I had spondylolisthesis.
That's not fun. Spondylolisthesis.
Spondylolisthesis, and it was slipping onto the nerve, and I was just in so much pain. And I just said to him, like, this is just, I don't know if I can do this today. Anyways, like, sit in the chair. And literally for 20 minutes, and I thought to myself, he said 11 out of 10, I'm going to ask you at the end what out of 10 the pain is. And I was like, all right. So I sat there and we did 20 minutes of hypnosis. I've never done it before. He'd caused me to relax, went down some stairs. You go down 10 steps and you get down to this nice big feather bed. And then you lay in the bed, and then he's basically started to talk to me about my pain. And saw it glow in the lower back and then come up the spine. And then once it gets to the top, you close the gate, the dorsal horn, so to speak. You close the gate so the pain messages don't go to your brain anymore. And then you watch the glow come down your arm, and then your hands get really hot and the pain left through your hands. And I thought to myself, I've listened to every word he said. I've got to now wake up and sort of open my eyes and say, oh, it's a 9 out of 10. Thanks a lot. That was good. Because I felt like, oh, I know this is supposed to work, but it can't have worked, right? Because I remembered everything he said. Anyway, I got up and literally had zero pain. It was 0 out of 10. And I remember getting down on the floor. Another psychologist was there learning with me. And I'm on the floor, like moving around, just like, can't believe this. I've got no pain. I couldn't sit on the seat, and I'm kind of like just checking really. I had no pain for about 4 to 6 hours, and it came back, but not with the same intensity. And so then that was my first experience with hypnosis for pain, which was really interesting.
Your training as a clinical psych, then doing a master's in sports psychology, you would have been flipping out going, What's this quackery? Yeah, shutting off pain receptors. Did it take you a while to really embrace it, or did it just happen because you felt it? So you bend the sides, didn't get cerebral. It was more from the body. So that physical intelligence.
It was just amazing. I just remember thinking, that's amazing. I don't know what you did, but it was amazing. And I was, open. I'm pretty open to most things, and but I like to see that they work. And I think that's part of my makeup as a practitioner, as a human. I like to see it work and get the evidence. And I certainly got the evidence that day, and I couldn't explain it. And even though I was there learning it, it just gave me a whole new respect for what I was doing and thinking, okay, I'm fully on board now with this. Because when you have that personal experience, you can't explain it. And a lot of the stuff that we learn as psychologists, and it's intangible stuff. Right, that's the hard part when people talk about psychology. It's like you can say it's intangible. Thoughts are intangible, even though we all have them. It's really hard to put a finger on how to manage a certain emotion because they're so strong and we can't feel them and touch them and put them to the side. So it was just another step in kind of my learning and my confidence in psychology.
When you're working with someone who says they want to be ready for these big moments, what exactly does ready mean?
That's a tricky one. I think a lot of people come to me and they say, I want to be ready. And a lot of the time that's not going to be, I don't have a magic wand and I'm not going to be able to help you today, but we'll work on it over time. So I think a lot of being ready is self-awareness, being able to, open up, expand your awareness of yourself. First of all, because your thoughts and the way that you hold yourself and your emotions and the way that you either run from them or sit in them, these things can all make a difference. So in what I do, we talk a lot about being flexible. So the more awareness a person has, and then they can start to realize, okay, well, my brain's going to tell me that I'm not ready, for example, and how do I switch back to a place that's going to allow me to trust myself? So a lot of what we talk about is this awareness of self and then actually coming back to who you really are and trusting it. So somebody who's ready is somebody who's quite, composed, confident that they have an understanding as to the things, the places, the situations that could happen and the things that could interrupt them, and then knowing that they have the tools to come back.
One of my learnings working across multiple industries, you and I had a great chat before we press play. I'm really curious about humans, how we go for these big moments and we tend to do two things. We make them much bigger in our mind than they need to be. We create massive mountains rather than little sort of rocks to roll over. And then we underprepare. So we blow the significance of the event up and then we underprepare. Why? With your years of experience as the readiness guru, and I love that positioning for you. It's not just athletes, but you work with a lot of medical staff. So you really have positioned yourself to get people to get ready. But yeah, those two things. Do you find that is a real common theme?
I think they prepare in one way, so my doctors do prepare, they study a lot. My athletes do prepare, they get themselves fit and ready and they do the reps. It's a different type of preparation and you don't know what you don't know. A lot of the time when they come to me, a lot of the time it's been because they've failed an exam or they've had a disappointing event or race or competition. And then it's a case of being able to start to open themselves up to other perspectives. They think they're broken, but they're not broken. It's just they're looking through a different lens. And we've got to kind of get them to shift. And I guess that's my job. I see what my job is mine's the easy job. Mine's the job of like, here's you guys doing all this amazing work. You've got the talent, you've got the skill most of the time, got the knowledge. It's up to me now to believe in them until they believe in themselves. And part of that is helping them to shift into the lens that I see through, so to speak, similar. It's a common thing that people don't prepare mentally.
Is a lot of your initial work, or when people still meet you, is it deficit? So it's based on a problem, someone's missed a big exam, they've fumbled or stumbled in a race. Or is it moving more towards solution-based where people are being more proactive?
I get a mix. A lot of the time, my medical professionals, they're I mean, I guess more so at the start, they had failed exams and they'd come to me to, they'd been recommended to come to me to help them to pass the next time, because for all different reasons, but it's, they sacrifice a lot of time, a lot of energy, costs a lot of money as well, and they want to pass the next time. But now what I'm finding is there's people being proactive and coming prior to taking the exam, and they give me sometimes 6 months lead time, which is great. With athletes, it's the same sort of thing, but mostly deficit. I would say that they've had an injury, they've waited a little longer than sometimes is great, because they've started to go downhill and their parent or themselves has gotten worried and they've come in to see me, or they've just had a really difficult, failure, so to speak, in their mind. They feel like they've failed, and then they'll come and see me. So I find the athletes are more deficit, and then the doctors are now being more proactive.
That's interesting. I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
Oh, look, don't get me wrong. I do get athletes that come in that know that they're at a certain level physically, and they want that, that extra 1%. But those athletes are usually very insightful already, have a large level of self-awareness, and they're really striving for that next level. So I find the athletes are more deficit-based, but yeah, it's sometimes there's a rare occasion where someone will come just for the mental skills addition.
The concept of lag time, we often are behind 3 or 6 months how other people see us. So you've got a new wardrobe, someone's gone and got a degree, or they've changed their physical appearance, and everyone goes, oh, wow, look at her, look at him. And we sometimes live in that previous model of where we were. It takes a while for us to sometimes catch up to how others see us. It's some of the work you do around lag time and confidence, so getting people actually to catch up. So part of preparation is, hey, you're ready for this now. You just need to back yourself. Or is it doing the work, or is it both?
Well, it's both. What I find is nobody's ever ready. They don't feel like they're ever ready. The time is coming. We talk about the storm. We talk about how, the exam date is coming, the race is coming. And so there's this big storm that we've got to walk through until that point, because it's not going away, it's coming. And we can either run from the storm, or we can turn around and we can walk through the storm. And we know that it's human to be tossed around by that storm a bit emotionally, and, in our thoughts and our self-doubts and all of those things that come up when we're kind of walking towards something that's important. But it's quite interesting, because what I find is that those people that are really highly ready, like in terms of prepared, we get halfway through the storm and suddenly they get excited about what they're doing. And they're like, now I want it to happen now. I'm ready now. And so we've got to try to get to peak at the right time, so to speak. So it's like there's this time and it's tumultuous. And they think, I'm not ready. And then suddenly halfway through that storm, because we know that we're aware now of, okay, this is some of the thoughts I might have. These are some of the emotions. This is normal. I'm human. I know what to do. I know how to manage myself. And then it's so exciting, because we start to get into this period where before they were kind of running from the storm and saying, I don't think I'll even make it to the exam room, or I don't think I'll make it to the start line. And then suddenly they get halfway through the storm, and because of some of the work that they've done, they start to really, feel ready and excited. And I like to see that shift. And it's something that I've noticed, that yes, there is a lag time, but when they change their perspective, suddenly they'll start supporting themselves, and so will their body and their mind.
I like that conscious use of language. You're obviously depicting that when someone is going for a big moment, it's not going to be easy. Even that metaphor of the storm. You're going to go through the storm. There's going to be noise. There's going to be discomfort, but we're going to give you the skills to survive. You obviously consciously do that, so you don't sugarcoat what you're doing. Hey, you just need to take a pill, a potion, a bottle of lotion. Lisa Martin's going to get you there. It's only $5.95 per month, every month. Give me a there's a lot of pop psychology bullshit around this. Does that sometimes surprise people how frank you are? Going, oh, wow, she told me it's going to be a bit hard, a bit shitty, a bit real?
I think they they're a bit shocked at first. I'm a pretty blunt, sort of frank person, and I like to use humor and I like to be real. And I never ask my clients to do anything that I haven't done myself. So I always try out the strategies and relate them. And I use the ACT model a lot as part of my practice, and part of ACT is, there is self-disclosure in there, and that suits me too, because it's I can relate. I don't have to be that person behind reflecting back to them what they're saying all the time. I can actually, engage in some of the dialogue about the strategies. But coming back to your question, in relation to the storm, I think one thing that they can relate to, a lot of clients, is not necessarily, we sometimes talk about the importance of compassion or self-compassion, and everyone starts to kind of cringe and go, oh, what is that? So I went away and did a lot of work in it, because I knew how important it was, but I want it to be relatable to my clients. But at the heart of compassion is courage, which is, the courage to turn towards difficult emotions, or to identify that we are in pain and we are in distress, but we also have the courage to sit with it and walk towards it and be able to engage in things that can start to alleviate or attempt to alleviate some of that pain and distress, or just be with it. And so I think they can all relate to the fact, I think most of us can, that we're faced shit in our lives sometimes, and that we have courage. And so that, once I start to position that in relation to what they're about to go through or what they're going through, and they start to draw on that, I find that deepens their trust of themselves, and it also helps them to connect with some of the concepts we're talking about.
And I can imagine having courage, even the way you've explained that, helps counterbalance panic and fear, which are crippling, aren't they? Panic. We can sometimes spiral down, hopeless, helplessness. We get just whipped into that frenzy.
Yeah. Look, I talk a lot about neuroscience. I'm interested in neuroscience. I'm always dabbling in something, as I mentioned before, and it's been my thing that I've been really interested in for the last 10 years or so. But, our brain is going to try to protect us, and it is predictive. And it will think about the last time that you felt discomfort or disappointment or hurt or whatever it is, and it will try to protect you. And in the midst of that comes a whole range of different, neurotransmitters, a whole range of different physiological and psychological elements that can block you from your being able to function at the highest level. And so a lot of what we talk about is that there's this awareness of, let's be ready for that, and that's part of us, and let's be ready for our brain to, get hijacked. I guess a lot of times people say the amygdala, the fear center, hijacks the part of our brain that has all this study-related information in it, and then when we get to the exam, we can't remember our name. And let's have a way to kind of not push that away, but acknowledge it and then figure out what we're going to do with it. Being aware of the fact that we're human and that we're going to have those moments of fight, or freeze response that's going to maybe shut us down at times, and be ready for that.
It gives a really good framework for our audience, because I know a lot of people listening to this or watching this on YouTube will be going, hey, I've had all these performance moments, these big moments in my life, and I've walked into it, and maybe I've studied or I've looked at the content, like a typical exam, right? We look at chemistry or maths. My daughter's finishing today. She's finishing, the last HSC exam. We needed to do this 4, 5, 6 months ago.
The stress is going to fly out of the house now, right?
Already this morning she rang me up and she said, Dad, it's the last day. I said, this is the last time that you say to me, Moo, that this is your getting ready for school today, getting my lunches ready. She said, Dad, I haven't got lunches ready for the last 3 years. I said, look, I know, I'm just let your old man tell a story. So yeah, it's a significant moment. But yeah, you're giving a really good framework, and your curiosity shines throughout this conversation. You're trying a lot of different modalities and techniques. Yeah, you've got imagery. You've brought in a lot of self-talk. You're talking about pre-performance routines and some of the frameworks, reframing. What I would like to do is to go into psychology a little bit more. I know you're a big proponent of acceptance commitment therapy, ACT, which uses mindfulness, somatic and cognitive strategies. It's a really it's a combination of lots of different strategies. There's not one size fits all. When we look at the benefits of ACT, there's multitude of benefits when we look in the research: chronic pain, mid-moderate depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder. It's used for psychosis, smoking cessation, tinnitus, epilepsy, a lot of disorders after surgery. So it's got a big, big use. I'd love you to give us a bit of a definition about ACT, and I've got a couple of questions on it. So this, my understanding, if I'm right, ACT is a big part of your practice.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it is.
Whew, thank God.
It is.
Gee, that would have been painful, right? No, Andrew, no,
yeah,
I'm only
actually, I don't use that at
I'm
all.
a proponent of cognitive behavioural therapy, and I don't actually believe in ACT at all. Hang up.
Yeah, I think I do a whole range of use a whole lot of different frameworks. Of course, we all get the CBT training at the start of psychology, and of course that's gold standard in a whole range of treatment of a whole range of different issues. And it was, I think CBT was a big part of the way that I practiced earlier on in my career. I've been around for a little bit now and tried a few different things. And I think when ACT came up, it's something that really interests me. But the more I started to apply it, the more I realized it was more, it resonated more with me and my way of being, my way of practicing. And I also noticed that a lot of my clients were reacting well, I guess, or not reacting well. It made more sense to them when I spoke in the ACT language, and it was basically, what I could go on a whole range of different things with it, but a lot of the difference that most people notice is that cognitive behavior therapy is very much like you have a thought. And it's a negative thought.
That connects to your feelings, that connects to your behaviour, and you look at the interaction between.
Yeah, you have the thoughts connecting to your emotions and behaviour. And I still very much use that CBT approach, especially when I'm explaining something like anxiety, because it does sit within, as part of ACT. It's not totally separate from it, but there's a difference in terms of we're not pushing away negative thoughts and replacing them with positive thoughts necessarily. We're not looking at the evidence for why we're having these thoughts and try to change our perspective on them in ACT. While that is still really useful, and I have done that with, and I will still use CBT for certain clients that I think would work better in that modality and that framework. But what happens with ACT is that we start to develop a different relationship with our thoughts, so that when we have a thought, it's not about, oh, that's a bad thought, push it away. It's more about like, let's invite it in, let's acknowledge it, let's notice it, let's observe it. What am I thinking about? What is this part of myself, trying to tell me? And a lot of the time I use the analogy of that you're the bus driver and you're driving the bus and you're headed to the bus. And so the bus driver is a very good bus driver, but he's driving a public bus and he has to stop at all the stops and pick up the passengers. And the thoughts are your passengers. And out the front of the windscreen is everything that you're kind of working towards, or your goals, sort of the things in life that are fulfilling and meaningful are sitting out your windscreen, and you're driving the bus, but you have to stop at the stops and you have to let the passengers in. And some of those passengers are going to tell you, or they're going to be noisy. Sometimes they're going to be abusive. Sometimes they're going to tell you you're not good enough. And we've got to be able to, instead of, losing it and getting up out of our seat and taking the effort to try and wrestle this person off the bus, which I a lot of the time called Negative Nancy. So Negative Nancy gets on the bus and tells you you're not good enough, and it's like, oh, that's a bad thought, we've got to get it away. We instead recognise it as something that's useful. Not helpful right now, but it's like useful to recognise the fact that, oh, that's a part of me. What's it trying to tell me? Oh, it's trying to protect me, because basically Nancy wants to drive the bus to protect you. Nancy wants to put you to the side of the road, and if you sit there and be a really good bus driver and talk to her, and then you're not moving forward.
It's a rich way of explaining it. And to anyone listening to this called Nancy, hey, Nancy, we love you. It's just that Nancy rhymes with negative. It could be Noel as well.
Sometimes it's negative Neil.
Neil.
You know, we do
Neo.
that as well.
Yeah.
You know, whoever anyone wants to get on their bus, right? And it's just about, you know, I don't need protection today, Nancy. I'm driving. You're not driving. Jump in the back of the bus, though. You're coming with me because
get your mobile.
That's a part of you.
Sit down.
Jump in the back. And once you sort of acknowledged her, she'll calm down a bit.
What I like about ACT is the duality, and I find N=1 for me when I've got stuff going on. Sometimes CBT, I don't have the energy, the bandwidth, or I need to sit on something. So I like that you can have a negative thought. You know, the lunchbox theory. You can have a bunch of negative thoughts or stuff that's not going well, and you can put that lunchbox, or you can put those thoughts in a lunchbox, close the lid. You can open the lid up, and that can exist with another thought. I think this was a big breakthrough in my thinking and personally, and then coaching. I had a client this morning. He's a good man. I'll give him a copy of this. He's public profile, has been through a lot and has been dragged through the media. I'll just leave it at that. And he's dealing with a lot at the moment. I love that Hebrew proverb, this too shall pass. But when you're going through trauma and someone says to you, bad shit happens to everybody, this is going to make you, you're going to get stronger. You feel like absolutely wrestling the living daylights out of that person, headbutting them, telling them to shut up. But we were talking about a few strategies this morning. It was really based on this. And he just put his hand on my shoulder and he said, this is really helping. I said, oh, good. I said, it's going to be shit for a bit longer. And then you will move into a phase. We've defined 3 separate phases. And then you'll look back and you'll still have the thoughts and the emotions, but you're going to get better at it. And I said, what is working? He said, well, I've tried just getting rid of all the negative thoughts and the noise. I said, that's not going to help you right now, mate. That's going to actually hurt you.
Yeah. It's a lot of energy, right? And then you're identifying, oh, that's bad, and oh, why am I still thinking about that? And so I guess that's we start to talk about that flexibility of kind of like, oh, I'm having the thought that I'm a crap person, or I'm having a thought that I'm a failure, or I'm having a thought that, you know, I'm not good enough to race in this race, or whatever it is. But I'm having that thought, and what we're doing is, I always say that, you know, a thought is, you know, if we give it too much time, it's joined by an emotion. And what we're trying to do is put space between the thought and the emotion. So we can kind of go, oh, I'm having that thought. There's negative Nancy jumping on the bus. I don't have to believe everything she says. And if I'm talking to doctors, sometimes I say to them, you know, do you believe every patient in the ED who comes in from the emergency room to tell you what they've got wrong with them? Of course, you're going to listen to them, right? But it doesn't mean that you're going to believe everything that they say. It's just about acknowledging them, because I think it's important to acknowledge when somebody's upset what they're trying to tell you. And this is your protection mechanism. And it's saying to you, be careful of this and don't do this, and you're not very good at this, you should just give up. And instead of giving up, we can say, oh, I'm having the thought that I should give up. I don't need protection today, but thank you. Like, jump in the back of the bus, you're coming with me. And then I always say that there's other passengers in the back that are kind of like supportive, like you and I, kind of sitting there kind of going, Nancy's back on the bus today, or Neil's back on the bus today, or whoever, Nigel. And I hope the bus driver knows that if things get too heated up there, we're going to step in. And we, you know, we've got your back, sort of thing. And so I sort of say that that's your strengths, your values, that's all the supports that you have, that's your team. And we kind of got to sometimes bring them back from the back of the bus to the front of the bus and talk about some of this stuff that we're not allowed to talk about, because otherwise we've got a big head, or we don't really talk about the things that are important to us. We just want to pass the bloody exam. But I can tell you, when I start doing values work, and that's a big part of ACT, with my doctors, for example, a lot of the time they're like, oh, I just want to pass the exam. What are we doing this? But by the end of the time... Teach
me some breathing and just some stuff about negative self-talk. Like, you know, do I really need to go into deep-seated values? Bloody psychologist, right?
Stop going deep.
I want the quick fix.
Don't want to know. Yep. And so, but at the end of the day, we bring them up, and then we kind of recognize, oh, here's the chaos that's happening. Okay, come back. And that's why shift, I call it the drift and shift. We're going to drift away and we're going to have all this chaotic kind of negative noise, whatever it is, humanness, and then we're going to come back. And then we use the values to sort of help us to drive the bus. And at the end of the day, I've had a number of my clients say to me, at the end, I was still nervous, Lisa, but, I passed, and it was the values work that we did that got me to the end at the end of the day, So there was this whole like, why are we doing values? It doesn't make a difference. And then there's like, oh, the values actually were helpful.
I see why she did that. I love that quote. If you invest too much time in a thought, it's joined by an emotion. It's beautiful. So we all have thoughts. Thoughts can float in. They can be like big, white, fluffy clouds, and they can float back out. But when you attach the emotion to that or give it too much credit, that can spiral down. Beautiful examples in real life on a big red bus. Ding, ding, ding. Tickets, please.
Yeah, look, and I think, they break those, they say dancing around the hexaplex when you do ACT training, right? And I think that's what I like about ACT is that you can start anywhere and you can go anywhere, but it's all towards the same thing, which is, I guess, getting a greater connectivity with somebody's attention, their sensory, emotional regulation systems, and it really is about like what's important to you. But when we sort of talk about that, people go, oh, I don't want to do values again. I know what my values are, but I do it a little bit deeper than that, I guess. And by the time we've finished talking about it, and it came from like I stumbled into an ACT professional development one time on the Sunshine Coast at Caloundra because I had to get my hours up, and by chance, the professor who co-created ACT was doing the values discussion, and it's Kelly Wilson, and he's a very well-known psychologist and a professor, I think, at the University of Mississippi, who he was anyway. I'm not sure where he's at now, but he might be retired. But he was amazing in that day, and he made us do this values work, and I sat there and I was kind of like, just got to get my hours up, and I wasn't ACT focused at all at that point. And now I look back and think, oh my gosh, I should have so much listened to the 2 days of work that he was doing, because it was just amazing for him to be doing this in Caloundra. And we did this values work, and he came up with all these different values, and then he made you take away values. If you could only have two, what would you choose? And you're kind of like, oh, I can't separate this, and I don't want to give up on this, but that's more important. And if I've got that, and sometimes that's part of some of the processes that I do with values as well. But then I say, well, you don't have to choose two, you can have all of them. But many of them we're not aligned with. And so, but that's okay too. But it's, your values would have changed from maybe a couple of years ago to now. So I always say, what are your values? Not what somebody else thinks you should be saying. Like, if honesty isn't one of your values, don't put it down as one of your values. But we do a whole range of things where I get them to rate, whether these things are very important or not at all. And then I get them to group them. I do a little tweak, and they group the ones that are left, and they have to actually discuss them and talk about them and name them and give context to some of them, so that it actually becomes a rich part of, our conversation. And if we're working with doctors, it's not your values as a human, it's your values as a doctor. So they can draw on that.
I can think of a Chinese proverb to sum up that very special day when Professor Kelly appeared at the right place at the right time for a young woman in Caloundra.
Exactly.
The teacher appears when the student is ready. Isn't it amazing how you look back at some moments like that and, right place, right time, right message, and you've gone double click, bang, I'm going to build this into my practice. What I'd like to transition to is, with our audience, they may not be elite athletes, they may not be studying for a big exam, they may not be going for the big multi-million-dollar role. It may be an everyday moment in their life, but it's still causing them some stress and anxiety. So for someone who's got a big moment coming up, let's say it's speaking at a conference, I'm working with a team, we've got a big event tomorrow as we record. with a national insurer. 3 of the executives I'm working with, they're really nervous because they're presenting to 350, 400 people. And what they're more nervous about, they've been told, all right, you don't have half an hour to crap on. You've got 10 minutes. Give us an update on your business unit. Build some narrative or story into it and a little bit of meaning. It's been a really good exercise. But for someone who's got a moment coming up like that, or it just could be something that's causing them stress, what's a framework that people can use as you go, gosh, Andrew.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. I have a toolkit, Lisa's saying, with hundreds of tools, and you've asked me for a general one.
Oh, look, I think we can all start to observe the loops of self-doubt that happen. I think it becomes a skill, but it's observing the loops. And like I said, like the passengers getting on the bus, you're acknowledging what you're thinking about. There's a whole range of things we could do, but smile, come back to your body, come back, because when we get nervous and when we get in an uncomfortable situation, we a lot of time disengage from our body because it doesn't feel safe anymore. So I always say, come back. And even if you just have to tap your leg, I do it all the time. I've got 2 kids and it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Tapping your leg or having 2 kids?
6 and 9. And I just tap my leg, come back, Lisa, come back. Acknowledge the frustration that nothing makes sense.
I have 4.
I bow down.
My legs are bruised from all the tapping. Like tap.
I tap, come back into your body. And
I say this, I can work with a big organisation, CEO, executive team down and transition over 2-3 years behaviour change. I can work with sporting teams and work with great coaches and teams, and I feel stretched, I feel challenged, but I feel like with support and the right resources and the right team, you can make a real impact. Sometimes I find parenting hard.
They say it's the parenthood is the most difficult hood around, or something, or the most dangerous one, or something like that. It's so challenging, but you learn a lot. I learned that my patience isn't where it needs to be, because I thought I was so much more patient as a person until you get a 6-year-old saying things to you that you're just like, why are you saying that? That doesn't make any sense. Come back, acknowledge this doesn't make sense. That's okay. Come back. And then what's next? Come back into where you're at. And I think to get back into the practice of coming back, right, we don't have to be a guru where we sit in the present moment for an hour. I always take a leaf from some of the Russ Harris training that they do in ACT, and they say, the practice is in the return. So it's just the fact that I want to return back to here where I'm, more in control and able to put my attention on something that is right in front of me. That's all that counts. You don't have to be here for any amount of time, and you're going to go. This is the flexibility component. You're going to go again, but you've got to come back. And if you can come back and then even take a nice deep breath. Okay, so we want to kind of press reset on the prefrontal cortex. We want to kind of get rid of, take the lint out of the filter of the dryer. We just want to breathe into the bottom of our belly, and then breathe out for longer than we breathe in. A couple of times, just to kind of move that diaphragm up and down, and maybe hopefully activate the vagus nerve just a little. Take a nice deep breath. Soothe your mind a little bit by just giving yourself that little bit of, it's okay. You don't have to be too kind to yourself, because this is what I learn with high achievers. It's like, I don't do that. I have a hard time with that. But we work on it, and we start planting the seed of self-compassion, which is, basically acknowledging that this is hard. And maybe your clients, it's like, this is hard, but I can do hard things. And I always sort of say that all we've got to try and do in some way is signal safety to our nervous system. And sometimes our amygdala it's a one-way street. It's going to tell you, I always say, when you are anxious, when you are fearful, your brain is doing its job. Your amygdala is saying, I've figured out there's some uncertainty here, that be cautious. Maybe we should put you on the sideline. We should pull the bus over and leave it there because that's the safe thing to do. But the amygdala is not going to listen to you straight away. So we've got to signal safety back. It's kind of like the amygdala is like the CEO sitting in Sydney in the high rise yelling at their employees that they're not good enough and you got to look out for this and be better. And you're not going to be able to access the CEO. So you've got to go through middle management. And I say that your middle management is like the first middle management is your body. So that's the breath. And then the second middle management's your head. And so whatever we can do to signal safety and then get some kind of certainty in an uncertain situation, your brain doesn't like uncertainty. So it's kind of like when we come back to being present, we can sort of say, what's next? And I always say, if you don't know what else to do, hydrate. Just come back.
Cue water. And
hydrate.
And we're very aligned on this, even the time frame you've spoken about. You don't start working with someone who's got an example on Tuesday next week and you rock up with them on Thursday. You're front loading these skills. So you're giving them time to practice, to make mistakes, to come back, to try this on and to adapt as they go through. So you've got a nice runway.
Yeah, I find that anecdotally, if I've got a small amount of time with a doctor to help them pass their exam, it's touch and go, because a lot of the time we've got to bring them back from burnout. We've got to bring them back from striving. And I started to look at the compassion-focused therapy because I found that there's a lot of research in compassion-focused therapy in terms of the importance of helping you to reach your goals, helping you to get more resilience and helping you to perform better. But nobody really does it because it's not really accessible, I guess, because it's not conditioned into a lot of individuals. And so one thing, I've got to bring them back a lot of the time from burnout or overtraining or training really hard to get some sort of balance and regulation. And then there's this whole area that we kind of neglect, which is like our emotional regulation soothing system, which is, the thing that's going to help us to manage ourselves better in terms of that threat response and also give us more clarity. So we've got to get time to sort of switch on to a different way of being, and that self-compassion kind of sits in there, but also all the recovery work that athletes do, that they're already doing it. It's just that we could be better at it because it's such it will regulate the other areas of our emotions, but we just don't access it. So I feel like we need the strategies, but we need a bit of time to get the body and the mind back into the state that's going to be optimal.
I find with medical people that I work with corporates, even defence, the pointiest end of defence gets it because they're trained, but the rest of those subgroups can learn a lot from athletes, and that is this beautiful oscillation between stress and recovery, periodisation or progressive overload. Interesting you say that with a lot of them, you've got to get them to, in our language, down-regulate. So get them out of sympathetic, get them out of just chasing goals. And there's a sliver between pushing yourself really hard and then going too hard, too long, without values, without purpose, and you start to feel burnt out. So I like that you're getting people to down-reg and to come back, and it's really linked to compassion and soothing. It's so simple. And I often think if you got someone from 2-3 generations ago listening to a podcast with you and I now, they go, you guys have lost the freaking plot. What do you mean? Like, just do some gardening, Deidre. Get outside. Go down to the creek and take your fishing rod and catch a fish. Or, go up the street and see Nolene and Clem, take a sponge cake and have a bloody good cup of tea. We don't do that anymore.
Well, that activates the soothing system, right? The affiliation, and this is the thing. Like, I say to my athletes all the time, actually, if you can just enjoy it, come back to enjoyment. If you can just enjoy it, you'll get all of these benefits. But it's really hard because our brain gets in the way. So it's, absolutely. And I think sometimes it needs to just come back to being simple things like go do some gardening. But I always say rest is a performance strategy. It's not an and then, it's part of the whole process. And that's, I think, when you start to, I listened to one of your podcasts that said, talked about the survival weeks. Is that right? Survival weeks? Is that, when you go those weeks that you can't you know that you've got a lot on and you've got to get through them. And I just came off 2 of those. We moved house and my husband went back to America for a while, and it was a bit of chaos here at school, and the dog didn't have a fence, and this whole range of things are going on. And I was like, this is my survival weeks. But then you've got to do something on the other side of that to get the balance back.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted that you mentioned something we said in a previous podcast with Ange. I'll make sure she listens. You can see the ACT philosophies coming out in that, because 52 weeks a year, I say to all of my high performers, if you can have 25 to 30 good weeks or better weeks, you're winning. 15 to 20 max survival weeks. And I have those in conference season 3 times a year, around February, March, mid-year, and around October, early November. So just coming on the back end of it. And if you're a keynote speaker and you're doing a lot of presenting and someone says, how are you? Oh God, I was in Brisbane yesterday. Tomorrow I've got to be in Canberra. Like, get a new job. Stop whinging. No one bloody cares. You're getting paid a lot of money to go and meet with great people and talk about shit you like. Get over yourself and just know 3 times a year you're going to have survival weeks. It is a real way of adapting. The key, as you mentioned, is then coming back and going, all right, I've had a couple of survival weeks. Now I'm going to get back into a normal week, and it's a discipline around that. Hey, we could talk about lots and lots of things and go down so many rabbit holes, and we'll make this like a Joe Rogan 2.5, 3 hour podcast.
We could, yes.
I'd love to get you back to do one on the science of hypnosis. Would you be open to that next year? We can go a bit deeper on hypnosis and really look at it. I feel like we went down into the rabbit hole level 1 and you could have taken me to level 9. But in wrapping today, getting ready for our discussion about readiness, let's do the flip. Is there a question you thought I'd ask you and you just go, oh, God, I've done all this preparation and he didn't ask me? Or the flip, is there a question you would like to ask me?
Oh, question you didn't ask me. No, I think... I don't know, you just seamlessly put it all in there. So I don't, when I listen to it back, I'll know. But I think it's the first time I've really spoken about any of this. So it was really lovely to be able to have the opportunity to talk about it. I think you covered everything, and you stopped me promptly in my steps before I went on to any too many tangents. So I appreciate that. I do need that a lot of the time. But for you, I guess, in terms of the work that you do you see a lot of, and I think, we were talking a little bit about this before, but do you see a lot of presentations psychologically that you wish that you could impact? And I think, we're talking about being a psychologist and that extra arm to working in mental health, but do you see a lot of that in the work that you're doing?
Do I watch presentations and just think I want to get in there and help the person? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Oh, all the time. So when I go to a conference, because I'm a coach, as you are, we're fundamentally coaches, and a coach is to be in service of or help people to get better in the areas they want to get better. I have to remind myself it's in the areas where they want to get better. I go to so many conferences and, oh, geez. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Novotel. It is my honour to look. There's a fair, and I just think, oh, this is going to be a long day. I think, Lisa, if you're presenting to a group of people, it's a privilege, and if you have got that privilege, do the work. So whether you're introducing someone as MC or transitioning in between sessions, now let alone if you get up and speak. And here's the gap, and I mentioned this before, that we've got a big event tomorrow with an insurance company, and I've been working with some of the execs to present, and I've said to them, like, I don't need to know your content, let me know, but what I want to know is some of the storytelling, some of the pulsing and energy, because what I see so many corporates do, their preparation is PowerPoint. That's a small part. They miss the whole storytelling, engagement, enough theatrics to meet the room, but not too much theatrics and jazz hands that you lose everybody. So I see in the corporate world, one of the biggest areas to help people in your language around readiness. It's not what you're saying, it's how you say it and how you present it. There's a big opportunity there, huge opportunity. When I see people, if they ask me for feedback, I give it to them. If not, I just sit there and just try and be mindful and enjoy some of the message without getting all coachy.
Yeah, because a lot of the strategies that you talk about are definitely the strategies that we use, of course, you know, so it's there's a huge overlap and like huge. But you would also see some areas that I know that you'd kind of go, oh, that would be really great to be able to make that extra leap. And sometimes when I hear you guys talk about organizational aspects as well, it's like, oh, that's really interesting because I haven't worked in organizations other than sport, and how to apply some of the things that I do across to organizations. It's interesting.
It has total transference. I love the notion of cross-training. So you'll use surf lifesaving, and when you're swimming, there has some benefits in running with cross-training and different muscles, and the balance awareness in the water when you're on a ski could help you on a board. So there is some cross-training. I feel that podcasting and speaking and a bit of writing and a bit of coaching and presenting at a high level and then doing some proposals and doing organisation change, there's a real multiplier effect. So for you, the great work and expertise you have and you've done with some athletes and with some teams, you just work out how to amplify that. And that's another conversation another day around IP and scaling and message. It's been a big learning.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on. It's been great.
It doesn't look like it's the first time you've done a long form podcast. I'm going to summarize you with the letter E today. You've been elegant, eloquent, and energetic. Thank you.
Oh, that's really lovely. But thank you so much. It's been great. I actually really didn't think it would be this easy, but it was really lovely, and you made it easy.
Well, you've sort of done 20 years of reps and sets to sit down for an hour and talk about what you do.
Not about me.